What is up, guys, and welcome to this special preview episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me is my co-host Federico Perez. And guys, it is finally World Cup season. We're heading into the World Cup officially 1 week away from Paraguay's first game against the United States, but obviously they'll be in a group with Turkey and with Australia. And today we'll be previewing the first of the rivals that we'll be talking about. And what better way to have it than freelance Belgian and Turkish football expert Kaan Bayazit to talk about, Turkey and to talk about their chances against Paraguay, about how they're feeling, and just this overall vibe. Because I think obviously it is for us as a special moment to be back at the World Cup for 16 years. For Turkey, they haven't been back since 2002, so it's been 24 years. So, but kind of similar of like, just waiting and finally reaching the World Cup. But obviously that's a lot to talk about. And Kaan, firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. But I do have to ask you first, what is your connection to Turkish football? What made you fall in love with it? Tell your story and why you adore Turkish football in Turkey as it is.
Well, like you said, I'm based in Belgium, born and raised in Belgium. My mom's Belgian, my dad's actually Turkish, and that's kind of how I fell in love with Turkish football. Um, we share a team that we support, Beşiktaş. That's kind of how that started, I'd say. And of course, following the Turkish national team, that started around 2000, I think, with Euro 2000. That's really the first time I can remember vividly supporting the Turkish national team. Back then, of course, I think they went to the quarterfinals, got knocked out by Portugal. Eliminated Belgium in the process with two goals by Hakan Şükür. And then at the 2002 World Cup, of course, that was the pinnacle of the Turkish national team's performance with a third place finish and really a fairy tale run in the tournament where maybe even a final could have been in the cards had they not come up against Brazil for the second time in the tournament because they had already faced them once in the group stages as well, which I never quite understood why two teams that faced each other in the group stages can face each other again before the final. I think it should be the other way around, but yeah. Then we would have maybe lost the final if we would have gotten past Germany, which, to be fair, Germany did stop Turkey in 2008 to get to the finals of the Euros. So it's doubtful that they would have gotten past the Germans because, they're Germans after all. But yeah, no, that's where that started. And of course, the Turkish national team haven't been at a World Cup since. They've played in a couple of Euros since, three to be exact, 2008, 16, and then of course the most recent one, 2024. And I'm forgetting 2020, I think, but then that was a terrible campaign. So that's probably why I'm forgetting that.
Well, Kyle, first of all, thank you for doing this. And let me ask you, man, how is this 24-year absence viewed as fans in Turkey and around the world for you guys? Has there been an impact in society around football because of this absence? Have fans been cheering for other nations maybe during the World Cup lately? Or have they just been waiting for this opportunity and it's going to be once in a lifetime for some generations also, right? Because just like us, going 16 years after to a World Cup, and it feels very special. There's a lot of people that never lived it here in Paraguay. I'm sure there's a lot of people that around the world that have links to Turkey also are going through this situation.
Yeah, I think for people in the diaspora, of course, they always have a second nation to fall back on, right? Like you guys, I'm sure you'll support the US and tournaments, and for myself, Belgium, and for the millions of Turks living in Germany. Germany is, of course, always going to be a good team to support. Personally, I think I've been following. I was very happy to see Portugal lift the 2016 trophy because, of course, we had Ricardo Quaresma in that team who played for my club at the time. Pepe as well, who played for my club the following season. So there was always that you kind of go out and you see, okay, where do some of my favorite players who play maybe for the club I represent play? But obviously in Turkey now, there's a lot of excitement about the national team, surrounding the national team. Also, after a really, at face value, a really good Euro 2024. I think it could have been better. But that was at least result-wise, they got where they wanted to go. And I think the expectations now as well for the World Cup is at least get out of the group stages, and then we'll see where we will end up. Obviously, 48 nations participating. Who do you face when is always very important. So don't know what the expectations in regard to that is, but it's also the first time that there's so many participants, so it's a little difficult to predict. But the excitement is definitely there, and yeah, the 24-year absence is certainly something for a nation such as Turkey with over 80 million people living there. It's and it's a country that really lives for football as well, as you probably know, because so it has been a way too long absence. But it's very tough in Europe, in the qualifiers in Europe. It's very competitive. There's a lot of good, strong countries there, just like in South America. It's a lot tougher to get there than it is, for example, for with all due respect for Australia. you know, um, they found it a lot harder when they were competing with you guys. But so ever since they made the switch, they found it easier to get to those tournaments, right?
Yeah, and they had a really good qualifiers. You look at their numbers, and they barely lost during the qualifiers, really, right? It was a really bad loss, maybe to Spain, and those are usually the rivals that you guys want to beat the most because those are the big dogs over there in Europe. But tell me about those qualifiers. Has this team developed into something? Is there an important link with the coach? Is there really something with this generation to get excited about, or do you guys think that they're just not ready for it?
Well, obviously, there's plenty to be excited about because I think Turkey right now has two world-class talents with Kenan Yıldız of Juventus and most importantly Arda Güler of Real Madrid. And I really think those two players have been carrying the Turkish national team ever since the 2024 Euros, even because even back then, um, yeah, the national team was still built more around Hakan Çalhanoğlu, but even at that tournament, Arda really stepped up. And at the time, I would say Montella was a little resistant to giving him the reins, and he was still very much relying on Hakan Çalhanoğlu to be the man. But I have to be honest, I think that Hakan Çalhanoğlu has never truly stepped up to that role at the national team, despite being really successful at Milan and then at Inter. I always found like for the national team, he always was a little bit of a disappointment. I think there's lots of examples in the world of really big stars that the nations expect more of, and then they never really deliver. For example, in Belgium, we had Luc Niels, who was making yeah, a fantastic career for himself for PSV Eindhoven. He was scoring ridiculous goals year after year after year, but he could never really truly deliver for the Belgian national team. And I kind of feel like Hakan Çalhanoğlu is similar in that regard. He never truly tapped into that world class potential that he has shown at club level.
Well, you were about to answer my next question because I had actually written a couple of names down, which I believe are important in this team, but I wanted to get your opinion about them. I'll give you four names, and I want you to kind of take them out one by one, just leaving the most important one that you think could make the difference, or is the one that you want and you need in this team no matter what, right? Right now, heading into this World Cup. Obviously, your star he plays in Real Madrid. Guler, let me ask you about him. I'll throw in there Kenan Yıldız, and you already we're talking about midfielder Çalhanoğlu. Tell me a little bit about them, and leave the best one or the most important one out of these three for you in last place.
Well, obviously, look, Hakan Çalhanoğlu has been the captain and the leader of the team for going on a decade now. And he is very important. And he has, of course, changed his role over the years because in, well, really ever since that, I believe was it at Milan, I think he used to play more as an attacking midfielder. And for the Turkish national team, he even used to play on the wings. But at Milan, they really pulled him back a row, and now he's playing more in a regista role, deeper in midfield, and he's continued that at Inter as well. And now he's gotten the same role at the Turkish national team. And I really feel ever since that he has gone into that regista role, he's also come more into himself at the national team as well. And he has maybe put less pressure on himself than he did before. I think when he was playing that more advanced role, he was probably putting a lot more pressure on himself to score and assist and live up to what you'd expect from a number 10 more so than a deep laying playmaker. So he's of course very important for the national team. He did pick up an injury, I believe, a month and a half ago or so. So I'm not quite sure how fit he is going to be at the start. Kenan Yildiz is a big question mark now for that opener against Australia. He's actually not expected to start in that game because he also picked up an injury. He is, of course, very important. He's by far the best pure winger that Turkey have. And even if you can call him a pure winger, because at Juventus he plays more behind the striker, and that's also probably where he is best. But if you look at the wingers available, he's probably the best at that, especially on the left. He's very influential, very important. He's also somebody that you can always find, you can always give the ball to. And you really saw it in the last qualifier against Kosovo. Him, Ferdi Kadiol, the left back, and Orkun Kukcu was playing as the left central midfielder. Those three were really linking up continuously, and Orkun was blindly finding Kenan every single time. And it's such a gift to a midfielder when you have a player that you just know blindly where he's going to be, at what time he's going to be there, and if you can just blindly play the passes into his run, and he's every time he's going to be there. And that also resulted in the goal that eventually saw them through to the World Cup. Yeah, Kenan Yildiz is very important, but I do think that Arda Güler is probably the single most important player. He's probably the most talented player of the bunch. Fantastic playmaker, great vista, great vision. He can score ridiculous goals. He sees passes that almost nobody else does, and he's really, I think, right now one of the more elite talents when it comes to creativity in the world. So for me, he's probably the most important one. And then at four, I think it's kind of a toss up between. I would normally say Orkun Kukcu, but Montella, whether he's going to start him is a big question mark. And ever since he made the transfer to Besiktas at the beginning of the season from Benfica, before he went to Besiktas, he played every single game basically. Since he joined Besiktas, I think he started like 2 out of 7 or something, or 3 out of 7. So it's a bit of a question mark whether or not he's going to play. Plus, on top of that, you have the question as well, how is he going to play? Is he going to set up Orkun next to Çalhanoğlu and then Arda at the 10? That's a very offensive midfield. There isn't a pure six in there, so it is understandable if he wants to salt in a pure six there. Uh, Personally, I think it makes more sense to put Kenan Yildiz on the left, Arda on the right, and then whoever he wants to play up top, he usually plays a winger there because he doesn't seem to believe in number 9. And then you can balance that out with a number 6 and then have Çalhanoğlu and Orkun in the middle. But we'll see if Orkun starts. But Ferdi Kadiolu, who was also named the player of the season at Brighton, is an extremely important player as well. He's a right-footed left winger, left back, but he originated in the number 10 position as well. So he's a really good technical footballer from the Dutch school. So he's very important as well. I would say those are probably the 4 or 5 most important players, but there's also the goalkeeper, Can Çakır. He's really good. And then there's a bunch of decent players, I would say, but
Certainly it's going to
nobody special. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's going to be a good game. I mean, certainly they are talented. A lot of people say that they could be even a dark horse at this World Cup. I don't know if you're buying onto the hype. Yeah, there you go.
No, I think you need a striker for that. I think you need a proper striker to really challenge and to make. I mean, obviously they could make a deep run, but I think the biggest issue for Turkey is going to be scoring goals against better opposition. And I think you need a proper striker for that. And they have one striker in the squad right now, Deniz Gül of Porto, and he's young, tall, strong, talented, but he's not yet at that level. And for some reason, Montella refuses to play a number 9 because it has to be pointed out he scored in the last friendly. He scored a good goal, really good header. He also scored in that one game against Spain in the qualifiers, a 2-2 draw, which ironically, after getting battered in the first match, 6-0, I believe it was, where Montella did play his strongest 11. He then went to, oh, you know what, Spain, we're going to lose that game anyway. I'll field my B team. And the B team actually got a point away in Spain. So it's yeah. But I feel like he's very stuck in his ways. He's gonna insist on starting Barishal per Yilmaz. He's also a very hyped player. Um, behind, I think there's some agents pushing him to the forefront of the agenda, and yeah, he has to play basically. That's there's a couple of players like that who have to play, and there's a bunch of players in the squad that had to be called up apparently, even though they didn't really deserve it. Not saying that Barishal Primas doesn't deserve to be called up, by the way, because he's had a really good season, had a really good season last year as well. He 100% deserves to be there, but I don't think that if you're making the best possible lineup that he should be in the starting 11 because yeah, he shouldn't. Should he be playing over Kenan or Arda? No. Should he be playing as a number 9? Probably not. I think it's more beneficiary to players like Kenan and Arda that they have an actual target man to play off of. You
Hmm.
know?
It's gonna be fun, and obviously for us as Paraguayans, there's not really that big familiarity from all the Turkish players, but obviously it is the second game of that match, especially coming off of the game against the U.S. It's gonna be a big
Uh-huh.
occasion for obviously the U.S. and then obviously for us. But I gotta put you on the spot, Connor. My last question again. Thank you so much for doing this. Your prediction for this game, obviously, this is the second game for both of us, so obviously we'll go into this game either, sweating it out or playing for
Yeah.
qualification, that kind of thing. So. How do you see this game against Paraguay in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium or San Francisco Stadium, as they officially say, for the second game on June 19th?
It's very difficult to predict because South American teams, and especially a team like Paraguay, are always very fiery and talented, technically gifted. There's always a couple of really good players in there that play at a very high level. I think it's comparable to Turkey in that regard, where there's probably a couple of really, really good players surrounded by a bunch of decent players. And that's always difficult then to predict two teams that clash who are probably very similar in quality. On top of that, traditionally the second fixture is the most important one, but that has maybe changed now because I saw a statistic the other day which based on simulations, and of course we have to take that with a pinch of salt because I was told that 10 points in the Europa League and in the Champions League guaranteed you the next round, and that has shown, it has proven not to be the case in the last 2 seasons, the first 2 seasons of the new model. So those simulations are what they are. But I did see that 4 points is, what was it, like 98%?
99.9, 99%
Yes,
chance of
yes,
qualifying.
something like that, right? So the first match is obviously the most important one, and with all due respect, I think Australia are probably the weakest team in the group. That's the team you have to beat. There's no excuse not to beat them. That's the opener for Turkey, so they have to win that game. And then Paraguay, you want to get at least a point to guarantee the next round. And you guys, I think you probably have the toughest opener because the US, host nation, there's going to be a lot of excitement about that, around that. There might be some, we've seen some funny stuff in the past with host nations getting a little push in the back. So who knows, right? We all know how cozy Infantino is with your president. Mr. Trumple. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's gonna be tough. I think it depends a lot on what position each team is gonna be in. I would not be surprised, knowing Montella a little bit, that he's gonna be okay with a point. But it depends. If you don't beat Australia, then you have to go all out, of course.
To put you on the
So
spot, what's the score? Gotta do a score.
I think 2-2, something like that.
2-2. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a reasonable one for a lot of us. We'll obviously predict our game right before we do it. But Khan, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And where can everyone follow your work and follow you during this World Cup?
You can find me on Twitter at Rosarian, but I'm not that active on there anymore. Quite frankly, the last
Mhm.
couple of years, it's
Not
become a bit
surprising.
of
I understand.
yeah, it's but so you can always reach out there if you have any questions about Turkish football. Always happy to talk about Turkish football, Belgian football too, but to a lesser extent. I do follow Turkish football more closely.
Of
So
course.
Thanks for having me, Roberto and Fede, and good luck to you guys, of course, at the World Cup for both your nations.
Thank you so much. And you
Thank
too as well,
you.
Khan, for both of them. And thank you for everyone for listening as we close out this episode. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Khan, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.